So greetings, everybody. This is Abaya, Jivamaya Yoga Wisdom Talks, Wednesday, the 23rd of September. I keep wanting to say October. We're still September. And I am welcoming today Sita Rose. Amazing. I'm just so excited about this. As you know, we've been discussing the spiritual healing practices based on the five senses. Sarah Tomlinson beautifully took us through the sense of sight with her talk on yantras. Indu magically took us through the sense of touch with the mudras and the Marmani, was beautiful, and Yuta last week, of course, with the sense of touch, of taste. And this time, Sita Rose with the sense of sound. So this is really beautiful. Sound is huge. I don't know if we can fit it all in 30 minutes. I hope we do. So welcome, Sita, and thank you so much for donating your time and being with us today and really sharing with us your experience and wisdom on the healing of sound. How did you get into this journey? How did you start your journey with music?
Thank you, Abaya. It's so good to be here. My journey with music started probably in the womb. My family is an amazing, incredible musical family. My mother, a pianist, my father, a really amazing trumpet player, my sister, a singer. So it was really in my blood, and it goes beyond that. My grandparents and generations beyond that. So music has been a lineage, for my family, and carrying that on. I experienced music to be such a tool for me growing up to really connect, and to also express my emotions. I found music to be such a tool to really tap into the things that I couldn't put into words. And so I went to school for music therapy. My background is in music therapy. And then I came out to San Diego, where I still reside. That was about 10 years ago now. And I, there were certain cues. There were certain little, like, it was like following this roadmap, these clues that I picked up along the way, where I was like, what's this? What's yoga? What's chanting? What's kirtan? What is this magical thing that really is drawing me in? And chanting had been such a coming home. When I experienced chanting for the first time, I felt like I was home. And the way that I wanted to experience music in community, in unison, in harmony, like to have music be a space where you could come and experience the vibration of a collective, was something I was craving. I was craving that. And so I went to my first trip to India in 2012, and I bought a harmonium at this amazing music store. And that was the beginning of music as my spiritual practice.
Wow, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So if one goes to Sita's website, which I will put when I put this up on Facebook, you will see that she lists herself as the cosmic musician, a vocal empowerment coach, a music therapist, and of course, a musician. Music really throughout the ages has been, as you mentioned, a source of nourishment and solace. It's been called medicine,
Mm.
allowing us to really use it as medicine, use it as a healing tool, use it as a connection to the divine. How would you elaborate on that in your experience of all of this work that you've done with music, how it really assists people in a sense finding their voice, whether it be a singing voice or a speaking voice?
Yeah. Oh, yes, music. If we look at our, anthropology of music being such a point of use in a society, a community. So music being a source of worship, of prayer, a source of communication for celebration. And so music really allows us, it's that vibration, when we say like, why is music so, why does it like cut to all these parts of myself? Like when you hear a song and it just captures you, there's an opening, maybe it hits a body in a certain point and it's just like, whoa. The unexplainable, the thing that captures without words. And also my experience of seeing and how music really transcends our barriers, our barriers of language, our barriers of cultural, and seeing, the saying that music is the universal language. And while music has so many different facets around the world, Sylvia Nakash talks about this in her Music as Medicines chapter in her book, Free Your Voice. And she talks about her experience studying different medicine tribes, different communities that would use music as medicine during ceremonies, and how at different parts in the world, it didn't matter where they were, India, Brazil, Europe, there were certain melodies that were so similar, right? It's like the medicine melodies being a direct receiving, a channeling from spirit, from source, from divinity. And so when we connect with that vibration, it's a tool, it's a way to embody our vibrational aspect, whatever frequency that might be that you're wanting to bring more of into your life. And music is vibration, right? So when we consider how matter is made, it's energy, it's vibration. The table that I'm sitting at is matter, it's energy, and it's vibration, it responds. So we as vibrational beings respond and receive the medicine of music. And I love how non-invasive it is, right? So you can receive music and it can move inside your body, release maybe some stagnation, whether it be through tears or singing along, like actually letting the voice out. It's such a powerful tool, and which is really what led me to music therapy, and what I see in my practice all the time is just how miracles happen with music.
So in music, we're talking about sound, we're talking about vibration, and I know we didn't discuss this, but I want to ask, I hope it won't throw you for a loop.
No, it's
I
great.
remember a story about a monastery in France when the Pope issued the regulations that no longer could the prayers be said in Latin. They should be said in English. In France, of course, it would be French, but it was not Latin. And long story short, cut it very short, slowly the monks became ill. They lost their life force. They started moping around. They weren't eating as much. They weren't sleeping well, et cetera, et cetera. This went on for many weeks. The head of the monastery did many things, doctors in, this in, checking the food, checking the water, all of that. Finally, they thought, well, let's get a psychologist in, or psychiatrist. I mean, it has to be something to do with the mind. And so he witnessed what was going on for a day or two, and then he asked the monk, the head monk, when was it that you switched from Latin to French? And the man told him, and he said, and when was it that this all began? And the man told him, and it was right about the same time. So in kirtan, we talk in that, we really use the Sanskrit language for the most part. And in the prayers of the Catholic Church and probably some of the Protestant churches, I don't know if they still do or not, use Latin. So there's this root language, which is so important. Can you address that a little bit? That vibration that is there in a root language, which no other language really can give you.
I have chills with that story. Yes, yes, yes. So there's two things that are coming up with Sanskrit. I'll address Sanskrit first, being the primary language that's expressed when we chant kirtan or chant mantras. Uh, and so kirtan, is thank you, Mother India. Thank you for this practice. And so first, what comes to mind is how many lifetimes or how much energy is accumulated by chanting this ancient language. How are you aligning with all of the strength of of humans chanting this language, receiving this language? There's just feeling that richness, like
Right.
feeling how rich that is. Um, and the support, of our ancestors, like the energy of our ancestors. And so Sanskrit being this root language, we're also connecting with, and oftentimes connecting with, the deities, right? And so singing the name of the deities as an act of devotion, as a way to align with that specific flavor, or that specific frequency of consciousness. And so when we chant, the Sanskrit name for a deity, we're chanting to Ganesha, we're chanting to Ganesha. And so speaking into the language of this particular flavor of vibration and frequency. Another thing too that sparks, and I off the cuff sparks something inside of me. I was just talking with my yoga teacher maybe about a month ago about language, and we were talking about. There's such a beautiful quote. I'll have to share it in the comments here. It's a long share. It's so beautiful, but I will post in the comments because it is just beautiful about how words create, and words really express so much energy and so much information. We're talking about English and how English, just speculation. We're just speculating, and how English is really such a non-personal language. If you think about all the other languages in our world, that the Romance languages, there's a quality of intimacy there. There's such a quality of the words that are in this language that we don't have a good translation for in English. And just as speculation, like how English can feel like a very impersonal kind of language, in just the way that the art of our language of English. Yeah.
Well, so you mentioned, okay, so we go from words to giving information through words. Um, then at some point we internalize those words, allowing that to become knowledge, allowing that to become wisdom. So at some point we come into a silence, which also has sound.
Mm.
So maybe we can talk about the importance of silence, the importance of, and what is that sound? For me, I recently seem to have a bunch of crickets living in both my ears. Some people get music in their ears and some people do, I don't know, whatever, but I have these little crickets that just 24/7, they're just chirping away. So there is no silence, right? So my silence totally is going inside, lying down and just going inside and pretending I'm by this pond and all these crickets are singing to me. I mean, I don't know what else to do. But there is a sound, if I remember correctly, there is sound to silence, and it's really quite beautiful. And I also think silence is an extremely important component of sound, which I think is very often forgotten. So maybe we can address that.
Yeah. Yes. I love that you brought this topic up, and we have crickets at our house too, so I feel you on that. So when we think about kind of, yeah, the qualities, the aspects of what creates sound, is that I see it as this, a tapestry, or we have our canvas, right? The painting, the colors need space to vibrate, right? The colors need a platform, need a place to press against, so you can see the contrast of the lines, the edges of the piece of paint that you just swiped. And similarly with music, the contrast of sound and silence there offers the space for there to be sound. If there's constant sound in music, music being, many sounds strung together. So over the course of music, it happens in a temporal fashion. So it's one of the only arts is processed in our brain. This is my neurologic music therapy brain coming out perspective. So music music happens temporally over time. And so we may have a memory of the pitch that we just heard right before, or maybe an expectation of the sound that's about to happen. But to really be in the moment, you're listening to that particular sound. And so sound needs the silence to also move through space. So like the vibration itself needs space enough to vibrate, right? And so when we're thinking about the sense of sound, the voice, being this space of ether, of air, needing that space to vibrate through. So sound offers that contrast. So without the contrast, it would just be that constant sound all the time. And so when we add in the silence, we can use it in certain ways to build anticipation, to create another response, to in our brain to process that in our experience. We need the silence in order to make sense of the sound and that vibration.
So the pause, as we call it, becomes extremely important when we're talking, when we're doing anything, actually, just that pause, even that pause in the breath. Right. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. That space between. Mm-hmm.
So when you work, let's just say you have a client and you're being asked to be a vocal empowerment coach. What does that mean? Because I know you've got a workshop starting October 1st on empowerment. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I think it's fascinating. And I just think it's so important that, especially today, that we find our truth, that we ground ourselves in our truth, but then that we speak our truth and we really, allow that to come out. And I know sometimes it's very hard for people to get stuck, it gets caught here. So can you describe what it is a little bit, or enlighten us a little bit as to what this sort of vocal empowerment would really be, and how and why you would use it?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that image of things getting caught here. It's so interesting how that's woven in our language, our having a lump in your throat, or a cat's got your tongue, right? Or like when we go to express something that might be really vulnerable, or might be fear. Fears might come up around, if I express this, will I be accepted? Will I be judged? Will I be, cast out of my community? And that like primal fear can start to show up. And so with the vocal embodiment course, and thank you for that, yes, we have an amazing 4-month program coming up. I have an amazing 4-month program. So we really dive deep into this concept of embodying your voice, because the voice, as you know, has so much information for us. So it's really taking a look at the whole of the instrument. So if energy or something, emotion or belief, whatever is living inside the body, we're going to start to work through that with the vibration, and use the voice as feedback for what might feel stuck, or what could be even more fluid inside the body. And so the empowerment piece comes with working those pathways. So reworking and rewiring our nervous system, rewiring the brain, so that we're starting to practice that when we express and use the voice, you are safe, you are accepted, you're not going to die, and really move through some of those fears that may be so deeply ingrained, in our culture or society, or I hear this story all the time that I was 5 years old and somebody told me I had a bad voice, right? And so how quickly that shuts down the expression, the connection to like opening and really sharing like sharing what's on your heart. And how are we in relationship? So I love the voice as the metaphor of being that bridge between our inner world and our outer world, to express our desires, to express our love, to express these amazing ideas that move through us. And so how important it is to do that in community, where you have that, being witnessed, being seen in your expression. And so, yeah, the voice of the creatrix, it's for women, so it's specifically for women, and it's a journey. There's 4 parts to it, so I'll share a little bit about the program because it is really a juicy program, with with aspects of tantra, and really connecting and embodying the sensuality of the physical self, and tuning into the body as a map, the body and the voice as your whole instrument. And then we get to create. So we really get a space for a whole month to work on a song, to work on a project, to experience with support your creative process, which I think can be, and I've experienced myself, can be a little elusive, the creative process, or staying in your creative process, staying connected. And so that's part 2. Part 3 is the recording piece. So this is what I'm super jazzed about, because it's a new element to this program, where we're going to record, have the experience of hearing your voice, being in your process, create a professionally mastered track that's yours, and then share it. So the 4th part is to be seen, to like cross that bridge, to be witnessed in your expression. And yeah, it feels like a really unique way to connect and be in the embodiment of your voice and expression. So that's all happening next Thursday. We start.
So what comes to mind is, I wonder, do you get writers who are trying to find their voice, but for the written word, but they're still trying to find that voice?
Yes, I have many writers come.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
that's interesting.
yeah. So finding that, the voice has so many layers to it, right? The voice is like, how do you use your voice, your words as your art form on in written form? How does that translate? And so I do have a lot of writers. I have a lot of women come who are entrepreneurs and are starting a business that they are wanting to like express themselves in, and get their message out there, clarity, like really owning their vibration as they bring this new business forward. Yeah, and so all aspects of speaking to writing to singing, really really opening it to the voice of your creative expression. So we do go into vocal technique, so like learning proper breath work and proper vowel placement, and we go into the juice of that, and also just looking at how the practice of singing gives way to the creative process in all other areas. So the voice being our vehicle to look at that, but also extending that to the voice as how do you express yourself in the world in all formats.
That just, I don't know why I suddenly got this picture of the young acolytes in India doing their mantras, or young choirs in different cathedrals singing, and how incredibly beautiful it is to see these young people just singing their little hearts out. And it's just it's so exquisite. It's like this little bird just, it's really wonderful. So, so if someone were having a little bit of trouble finding their voice, and let's just say it's just not possible for them for whatever reason it may be, for them to take a course at this time, it may not be financially feasible for them because of recent unemployment or whatever, to be able to do really too much of anything but something on their own in their own home, in their own practice. What would you suggest to somebody who wants to try and find their voice to be able to do on their own and just slowly start to be very comfortable with that?
A great foundation, a great starting point is humming. Humming.
Love it.
I think Jonathan.
It becomes obvious, but I would never have thought of it. Yeah.
It's like the simplest thing. And yet, Jonathan Goldman wrote a whole book on humming, like an entire book. So there's so much there, and the simplicity of what humming has to offer. Not only are you like finding that relaxation, so the humming stimulates the back of the vagus nerve, really connecting to the ability to relax, soothe the nervous system. So humming is so delicious for that. Also, humming is a little bit more internal. So the lips are together. And humming can really be, you know, something that you do wherever you are. So if you're driving around, if you're in the shower, just letting your hum go, like letting it kind of meander. Maybe you start with a song that you know or a chant that you know, a certain melody that's familiar, and really get used to that vibration coming from within you. And then the whole infinite possibility of like letting the hum, the melody of the hum, maybe you start to, you mentioned birds, like maybe you start to imitate birds.
Right.
Or
Right.
imitate the crickets, imitate these sounds that are around you. You know?
Be in Brahmari, right? The pranayam.
Yes, yes,
The pranayam.
totally. Yes, get your bee breath, the bee sounds going, like and then connect to that, essence of nature. Like here we are. So to be in relationship with that, with sound, is such a unique way to explore your vibration.
I think I know a few people that may not be able to just hum in the shower. They seem to be auditioning to be an operatic singer. I don't think they'll make it, but they seem to be trying very hard. I don't know what it is about the shower, especially with men, but it's like,
it's the acoustics. I'll tell you what it is. Acoustics in the shower, they just make singing so easy.
what is that? What is that? I don't know. Maybe I just, maybe the feeling that nobody can hear you in the waters, whatever. I don't know, but it seems to open up the vocal cords for sure.
Yes, how amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I've got to tell my son, who was lifting 300-pound weights at one point, dude, NFL is not going to call you. Would you stop this, please? You can hurt yourself. And then I am tempted to tell him, I don't think the Metropolitan just canceled their season, unfortunately, but I don't think the Met is about to call you either for operatic singing. That isn't going to happen.
He's
No,
exploring his inner opera singer.
it's so beautiful. You can really actually tell the mood of somebody in the shower in the morning. Oh, they're in a good mood today, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
Yes, the voice. Oh my goodness. Carrying so much information. And then, if it's a bad day, what are they singing? Oh, that's incredible.
instead of singing. So, in the last 3 minutes that we have together, is there anything aside from the humming, which is such a beautiful suggestion? I love that. Is there anything that you can say that might um, assist somebody in thinking about things in a slightly different perspective. You were mentioning before, my voice is bad, or they're not going to believe me, or this is outlandish, or whatever the thought may be. How can we use our own internal voice to stop playing that record and really kind of move into a slightly different direction and perspective?
Yeah, yes. Yes, we do this in the Voice of the Creatrix where we start to observe those inner voices. So noticing like it takes listening, right? It takes the listening and it takes the awareness to really stop, pause, be in the silence of listening to those voices. And often, they may get a little louder. So if those voices are, yeah, if those voices are not, getting heard, like, hey, don't do that thing, you're not gonna make it, they're not gonna believe you. Like, if they're not addressed, those voices might start to sound like a child who really wants, mom, like mom, 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 mom. It doesn't go away until you like, the child, the inner voice needs to be acknowledged and to also be seen. So giving the space for those voices, acknowledging them. Oftentimes they are protecting you from some sort of fear, or protecting you from the potential of rejection, or all the things, right? And so really just taking notice, listening, acknowledging, and then maybe there's a rewrite in there, or maybe there's a song that you can sing, or a chant that you can sing, that is intentional to give space for that voice. So an example might be, actually right when I got on this call, it was like, I really hope that I can express all the magic of sound, like that voice started to come in. And then I started to chant to Saraswati, who's my, our goddess of words and wisdom and expression of knowledge. And so whenever I hear that voice come up, I just call on Saraswati, and then usually it clears. There's usually some sort of clearing that happens, or acknowledgement. And so, yeah, I hope that helps in giving, your listeners, and giving our listeners who might be feeling that in those inhibitions start to release.
Well, I think in these times, not just with COVID and the pandemic, but the elections coming up, and there's just so much rawness out there, and so much um, sensitivity, and we just need to all be so careful, and really come back to who we are, right? Um, and that means
Yes.
also using our voice wisely. So I'm glad you mentioned the word listen, because I think it's an equation to sound and to voice that is very often forgotten. So that's really beautiful. That's beautiful. So I thank you. Oh, very, very wonderful. So I will be posting this. I know. Thank you so much. It just opened up a whole new world, and I hope for everybody that's listening. And we will be posting everything onto Facebook. And I'm also going to ask Sita to give me the name of the book that you had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The woman that you had mentioned who wrote that book about sound, because that sounds fascinating as well. I'd like the people to know about it. So thank you deeply for your time. Just really tremendous. And next week, we will have David Crow, who is the founder of Floracopia and a master in the plant world, a complete and total master. So I hope that you'll be able to join us. And if not, you'll be able to catch us on the YouTube's Jivamaya Yoga YouTube. So Sita, thank you again so much. Awesome. Yeah, and you can stay on for a second.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm going to disappear from you or not.